Well, hello, this is Mr. Anger, and today is actually January 1st, 2025, as I am recording this. Over the last, I would say, month, I've been doing a lot of reading on education because I'm going to be teaching a college course on teaching methods at a Baptist college in Wisconsin. And so I really wanted to get my head wrapped around some of these topics that I was going to be teaching on and some of the best practices and methods. And these are teachers who are not necessarily working in an AC school. They're probably going to be classroom teachers. But there's still a lot of the way students learn and how teachers need to communicate and best practices for helping students learn. Those things don't really change a lot. And so I just wanted to get it refreshed in my mind. And you know what? I learned some things from doing all that study that made me say the PACES are a really good program. And they really, especially the fairly new, fourth edition PACES, they have been well designed to prepare students and have them learn the content that's in the PACE. But I want to talk to you just for a few minutes here how to ace your PACE. I'm going to give you some tips, okay? Mr. English tips on how to ace your PACE. This is based on the research and that's been done in lots of realms of education, lots of age groups, and through the decades, and what works, okay? And one of the things that really helps is if students know before they begin what they are going to be learning about and what they are going to be held accountable to do. So in an education setting, we call those objectives. So they recommend that teachers actually tell their students, this is what we're going to teach you today in this class period. By the end of this class, this is what I want you to be able to do. And in order to know that you know how to do that, you're going to do some assignments. And then after a few days of doing assignments, we're going to do some assessments. And just see how well have you mastered these things and learned these things. Guess what? All of those things are pre-designed into the layout of a PACE. Now, if you are like a lot of teenagers, you probably get to this first page and you say, I don't need to look at that. And you skip it, okay? But actually, if you just take the 1 minute to read through that page, it'll help prepare your brain to say, oh, I see where we're headed with this. It's kind of like getting the bird's eye view before you dig into all the gory details. And maybe it'll help you see how does it tie into previous PACES on this subject, or how is this going to lay the groundwork for some future things that I'm going to study. So don't skip that first page for your own benefit, okay? I'm trying to help you ace your PACE. And so for your benefit, if you'll just skim over that real quick and see what is this PACE about, it's going to help you. And then I'm going to surprise you, okay? Go to the self-test before you even start the PACE. The self-test, now the PACE test has been taken out by your teacher or supervisor, and they have that on file, and that's what they're supposed to do, okay? So you should not see your PACE test, but you can look at your self-test. And so if you look through your self-test and read over the whole thing before you start the PACE, again, it'll help you realize, oh wow, I don't know that, and I don't know that, and I think I remember reading about that a couple years ago in my science or social studies, but boy, I don't remember that anymore. Okay, that's good. Because then it's preparing your brain to say, this is what I'm going to be learning. This is what I'll need to do by the end of the PACE to prove that I've mastered this content. So you're literally helping yourself be prepared to learn it by reading over the self-test before you begin. Okay? Then, a lot of times, unfortunately, this is fairly common among ACE students, is they will go to the page with the questions and they'll just take the question and look back and try to find the answer without reading the context and really trying to understand what am I reading. And that is not a helpful practice, okay? So you would be much better to take a 3x5 card. I don't have a 3x5 card on me, but I have a piece of paper. And what I like to do when I'm trying to skim read is I'll take that card and I'll just kind of slide it down the page and just keep reading as I'm going. And by forcing my eye to keep moving forward and not keep looping back and getting distracted, but gradually moving down the page, I'm going to pick up on things. And I'm going to see things in context, okay? Look for things that are underlined, new vocabulary words, and have a highlighter with you and go ahead and highlight those things as you're going. Then, when you get to the questions to answer, it's a good idea, find the question, but then go back and in the reading part of the pace with your highlighter, highlight not just the missing word, but highlight that whole statement. As you probably know by now, on the self-test and the PACE test, they might take that same statement, but they might leave out a different word. They might supply the word that you keep memorizing to fill in the blank, but they're going to leave out a different word. But their key is they want you to know that whole statement. The whole thing is important, okay? Then, the other thing that's valuable is the checkup, and that's like an assessment. And just like a teacher in the classroom will probably tell their students, this is what you're going to be tested on. Make sure you know how to do such and such. And we'll review with you in class and prepare a class for doing a quiz. In a similar way, the checkup is having you do that. So you work through it once, and now to do the checkup, you're going back over it again. I recommend that before you do the checkup, you take those preceding pages and just quickly read over all the questions and answers that you filled in. Because again, it's review, and getting that review in your head will help you remember it and learn it. And then you get to the checkup, and I'm willing to do this with my students, and maybe your parent or teacher is willing to do this with you, or they'll let an older student do it with you. I'll have a score key, and I'll have the student read the question and tell me what they think the answer is. And if they're right, I just give them a thumbs up. If they're wrong, I don't tell them the answer, I just tell them to mark that one, and I just put a little dot next to that question. And maybe we get through the whole checkup and they get to the end and there's 6 of them that they didn't know. Okay, now they can go back and look up those 6, find the answers, make sure it's highlighted, maybe write it on a piece of paper, write out the whole statement, and then study that before they try to do the checkup. Because I'm promising you, if you do well on the checkups, then when you get to the self-test, it's going to be a lot easier for you. Okay? So, each of those checkups become an assessment. And the assessment is not just for the teacher, the supervisor, your monitor to know how you're doing. It also helps you to see, okay, what do I know? What is easy for me? What concepts are hard? What terminology am I getting confused? Don't just say, well, I did it. Okay, that doesn't help you. Look at how you did, and it's okay, these are the things I really need to review and study before I try to do the self-test. Okay? And then again, don't just have somebody initial your self-test and just do it. Make sure you look over the whole thing, go over all the questions, and quiz yourself. Make sure you know the answers before you try to do the self-test. Some of the, I think it's biology paces, they have 2 verses. And you say, oh, that's so hard. Actually, it's a giveaway. That might be an easy 5 to 10 points, per test, just by memorizing those verses. And again, those verses are a lot easier if you have been working on them throughout the pace and you're not trying to cram when you get to the end. So again, just in a real quick recap, don't short circuit your learning. Don't just try to do the pages to get her done, okay? View the whole pace as part of your learning. This is your education, okay? And if you put the effort in, and just make sure your brain's engaged while you're answering the questions, while you're studying for the checkups, by the time you get to the self-test and the PACE test, you're going to know it, okay? And then you can keep your averages up and start acing your pace tests. Okay, and then that last tip that I started with I think will be helpful. Look over the objectives at the beginning and look over the self-test before you even start the pace.